Hey, this is Dave from metalepidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. What's up guys, Dave here from Metal Epidemic, back with another album review. And for this review, Duncan, Kyle and myself have been checking out the new album from Michigan four-piece death metal band Throne. The band's new album Pestilent Dawn will be released on April 9th via Redefining Darkness Records. So this is the debut album from Throne, who were founded in 2014 by frontman Nathan Barnes and drummer Colin Perpignani. Throne's inception began as a side project from Nathan's retrospective main band at the time, Sunlight's Bane, in efforts to channel their mutual love for traditional death metal. As they found themselves devoting more and more time to the side project, Throne quickly became the focus and full-time band. They have released one EP to date and have been gaining momentum over the last few years, sharing the stage and holding their own with major extreme acts such as At the Gates, Exhumed, Revocation, Suffocation, and Goatwhore. The band's debut full-length Pestilent Dawn hopes to showcase the band's mastery of the genre. The album was recorded and mixed by Andy Nelson at Bricktop Studios and then mastered by good old Brad Boatwright at Audio Siege.
Yeah. Oh, they get about, don't they? I'll tell you right now, the one industry that was not affected by COVID was producers and engineers. Like, literally, they were just like that. Yeah. What, everyone's stuck in their house recording things? Everyone can't go anywhere and can only write music? Christmas has come early. So.
And big Brad Boatwright is drowning in dollars right now.
He is dollar bill, y'all.
Swimming.
Mm-hmm. Just imagine him having like that, what do you call it? It was Scrooge McDuck. He must have like a tower with gold coins he goes swimming in. Well, that bank he is making.
Every review is his name. Every Brad Boatwright. So anyway, these guys, completely unknown to me. I'd never heard of Throne before, but when they released their first single from the album, I think it was Beyond Malice was the track. The track did pique my interest. Straight off the bat, I was thinking it had a very kind of Hate Eternal type feel to it, who are a band that I'm a big, huge fan of. But it also had a bit of a kind of Blackened streak to it, which made me want to check out the band that a little bit further. To be honest, the start of the album did not disappoint. The first main track after the intro, Amongst the Sinners They Came Forth, it comes blasting right out of the gate. The riffs are tight as fuck, visceral, a bit of kind of dissonant feel to them. It still has that kind of Hate Eternal type feel, a little bit of Morbid Angel in there as well, but it's got a kind of mix between old and new. Also though, on that track there was these little chords they threw in that were very, very kind of Behemoth-esque, very reminiscent of, what was the track about the trumpets, Blow Your Trumpets Gabriel.
Yes.
A couple of those chords very similar to those, just kind of thrown in, but it was pretty cool. The drums, let me just take a wee second to talk about the drums. Oh,
Big Davey's drum corner is now in session.
Oh dearie me. I mean, like, you'll know by listening to these reviews that I love a good drum sound, and the drums on this, I just fucking loved everything about them. They are, firstly, the playing absolutely punishing, and the sound is just, the bass drum's really punchy, the snare tone just cuts right through the mix. I love the tone of the drums overall. Fantastic sound. I thought it sounded quite natural, but we'll get on to that in a second.
Don't give it away.
Some of the we know it's coming. Some of the tones on the kit, it did remind me of the kind of slightly older Hate Eternal albums, Phoenix Amongst the Ashes, I Monarch, that kind of era. I thought they were quite similar. But in terms of the actual production of the album, I actually really enjoyed it right across the board. I think they've achieved a really good sound on the album. I think the mix is really well balanced. You know, the instruments aren't kind of fighting each other to try and be heard. Guitar sounds great. I love the tone. It's absolutely killer. And it sounds kind of equally as powerful, whether they're doing the kind of full-on, like, kind of meaty riffs, the kind of a la Suffocation, Hate Eternal, Morbid Angel thing, as it does when they go down a more kind of Blackened route, more akin to bands like Dark Funeral or Behemoth. And that kind of fusion, the kind of Black Death kind of remains right throughout the album. But what I liked personally about it was that the Blackened elements, they didn't become overbearing on the album. They kind of weave them in without it sounding forced or like it's kind of glued on to the start or the end of a track. And on most of these tracks, they keep that kind of Blackened side kind of well proportioned. They're kind of brought in as a kind of additional flavour rather than being like the main component to the songs. And even on the tracks where they do push it that little bit further, there's a track called Born of Death where they kind of push the kind of Blackened elements a little bit, but there's still enough of those kind of death metal traits in the riffs that it doesn't become like a full-on kind of black metal track. Favourite track on the album was probably In the Midst of Chaos. I just loved the kind of tempos and rhythms that they played with on that track, and the riffs had this kind of real kind of churning type feel to them that was really infectious. And then with the kind of slower parts, the kind of groovier parts of the song, there was lots of really cool pinch harmonics and stuff. I really liked that as well. Vocally, ticked a lot of boxes for me. I thought Nathan Barnes did a great job of covering all the different types of kind of death and black metal vocals. His tone was really cool. When he's down doing the kind of the lower stuff, the kind of like Steve Barker or Eric Rutan type vocal, he nails that. But he's also got a really cool kind of higher end as well. And the sheep, and they shall weep, and the sheep, and they shall weep is a kind of good example of that, of the kind of different various kind of tones and textures that he's got to offer on the album. There's a few guest vocal spots as well on the album, so you get an additional kind of vocal tone on tracks like All Creation Wept or Beyond Malice, and it kind of gives the tracks another kind of interesting adjustment. Lengthwise, I thought this was spot on, like half an hour with a little kind of interlude breather type track in the middle just to break things up. Great idea. I think it's a kind of perfect length for repeated listens. It was one I went back to quite a lot because I knew it was the kind of half an hour and you're done with it, but I went back to it a lot just because of that kind of run time of the album. Very solid. I really enjoyed it. I hate using that word solid, but it's kind of, it doesn't bring anything kind of groundbreaking to the genre, but they do the kind of mixing of old school influences with a kind of modern edge very well. It's unbelievably tight. It's got a great production, and every track just kind of hits with that kind of brute force. They never really take their foot off the gas, apart from that kind of interlude in the middle of the album. And I liked that they didn't just put out a kind of a regurgitated version of their EP from 2018. You can hear that they've clearly been working on their sound and tweaking the kind of formula ever so slightly. I think on that EP, I went back and I listened to that, they probably leaned more into their kind of Blackened influences, but on Pestilent Dawn, they've expanded on their kind of heavier, kind of deathier side and let those influences take more of a lead. And I much prefer that, if I'm honest. The EP was good, but you could tell it was a kind of band at the start of their journey, like their sound was still kind of coming together. The production was a lot kind of rougher around the edges as well, but on the album they sound far more focused and more confident in themselves as a band. Like they know exactly what they wanted to achieve on this release, and I think the ratio of the kind of death metal to black metal they've struck on this one is absolutely spot on in comparison to the EP, which was maybe a little too blackened in my opinion. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this. Not a band that I was aware of, but I'll definitely be keeping an eye on them because this was it's a fantastic debut in my opinion. Duncan, what did you make of Throne and Pestilent Dawn?
So we joked before we hit record that I was like, was this recorded by a drummer? The drums are so loud in the mix, which is not a bad thing, to be honest. I mean, they are the linchpin to absolutely everything that's happening here. Like, more so than, in all other genres, you can probably make the argument, maybe less so, but in death metal it has to be tight. And it is here. I mean, this is an album which is unmitigatingly heavy, out with its two interludes, which, are there just to allow you to catch your breath. I love the riffs on this. I really, really did. I actually liked that. I think it's track 6, which is Pestilent Dawn, is the one that actually starts deceptively slow. Comes out with this dun. I was like, oh, finally, a wee slow. And then the drums kicked in. I was like, no, fuck you, Duncan. We're going full speed ahead. No, I mean it's meticulously written. I mean it's like brutally punishing death metal. Like you, I like the level of Blackened elements that are in here. I think finding that balance to make it work is the same fine line balance you have if you're trying to make a horror comedy. You know, if you're trying to make a horror comedy, well, is it too comedy, so it's not horror anymore? Is it too horror, not a comedy? The same thing when it comes to adding Blackened elements to death metal. It's such a fine line that either way can lean, you know, too much towards one. And I think from what you're saying, that might be your impression of the EP overall, was that maybe it leaned a little bit too much to that side. And they haven't done that here. I found the balance perfect. Vocally, it's this guy, he's not, this is his life, this is his voice, and he's chose to use it wisely. I mean, he's not in a Backstreet Boys fucking covers band. He's doing it in the right genre, so it fits fucking actually, vocally speaking, sometimes death metal vocalists can sound like they are trying to sound like other death metal vocalists, if you know what I mean. I didn't get that at all. I thought his tone fit perfectly with what they had here. A great range as well in terms of his ability to switch up the tones he's doing. I thought the guest appearances worked surprisingly well as well. It's a very refined, very fucking punishingly concise release. I'm with you. I think the length, you take those two introduction tracks, you take them out, your album's realistically about 28 minutes long, and I think that's one, it doesn't feel 28 minutes because it fucking flies in, but two, at the same time, I actually think you get everything you need from the band as a unit from that length. I think they're great. To me, it reminded me a lot of, and we're speaking about this off air as well, it was like the first time I have a vague memory of us standing in a rehearsal studio and you letting me listen to Cataclysm and me just going, we're not doing that, are we? Like, I just can't do what that guy's doing. We're going to keep it. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. You're like, no, listen to how crushing it is. It kind of reminded me of like really early Cataclysm, just in the not only in the production, but just that precise level of brutality which doesn't waver. Like, none of these songs waver. Even when they do slow it down a little bit, it's still fucking laser pointer precision on making sure every fucking drum beat, every guitar riff, every vocal tone is designed to make you suffer, and I think that is absolutely perfect. I think they pitched it great. I'd like, is it the most remarkable album I've heard? No. Have I heard other bands do this sort of stuff before? Yes. But I like to think there's a bit of their own flavour in here for sure. It didn't sound like a carbon copy of other bands. I can hear their influences, which to me is a good thing. So it didn't sound exactly like Cataclysm, even though I keep saying that. Probably never listen to Cataclysm, but like those sort of things. I think it all works surprisingly well. I mean, it's a tough genre to sell me on at the best of times, but I think what they're doing places it above the throng of stuff that we usually listen to. And that word was throng and not thong. Just making sure. Just so you know. Dave mentioned sheep earlier on, but that's him just recapturing the weekend, Dave? Hey. There you go. Hi-ho. He's a bad man. Anyway, right. Kyle.
Kyle
has a con.
The Dream Killer. What are you going to say about this one?
I was waiting to see when it was going to bring up. He's going to be like He-Man, by the power of Grayskull, and he's going to fucking into the Dream Killer. So lift a pair of drumsticks and say, this guy didn't fucking use these! To lift his keyboard up. This is what he used!
Right, Kyle.
One drum pad with two fingers. I love the interludes on this album. They were great. Spanish guitar, fucking played that well. They were so good. Are you kidding? Right in the middle, what was it, track 6? I was just at the point I was thinking, okay, these guys need to let off the brake a little bit.
Yeah.
And then it suddenly, Spanish guitar interlude. I was like, this is lovely. This is actually really nice. I might show this to my wife. And not any of the other stuff. It was great. I really enjoyed it. I think they have actually quite a unique sound. Like that, okay, they've definitely got influences, but it's 2021. Everyone's got a goddamn influence. So I mean, we just kind of have to see past that at this point, I think.
Yeah.
But like the way they layer the black metal into the songs, it's not just like an additional thing on top or a bit of atmosphere in the back or a weird black metal riff here. It's like actually in the riffs, and like they've got that crazy up and down the fretboard, kind of like strumming thing, and go all the way up and down it, and it's just insane in the middle of all that death metal stuff. And I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a great way to actually bring some black metal into death metal itself.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they sound a bit like other bands and stuff, but again, who doesn't? And the guitar tone is a goddamn monster. That thing slayed me, and it kept me on the floor. And I was like, what? That was so good. It's again, it's a bit blackened, but it works so well for what they're doing, especially with the tone of the vocalist and everything. And the bass was audible. It was fantastic. And what I like as well, I'm not falling into like the typical genre traps of death metal with, you know, pig squeals and bleh and all this stuff. They are who they are, and they're not afraid to show that. They're not trying to please anybody in the death metal crowd either. They're just like, okay, we love death metal, we love these bands, we like a bit of black metal too, and we're doing what we're doing, and we're not going to give a fuck, and we are who we are, which I quite appreciate, because there's been a few bands recently where they just do the same old shit, you know, and it's just like, all right, you keep doing the same old shit, and it's unremarkable. But this was quite remarkable, and I really enjoyed it. So, especially the random Spanish guitar interludes. They have loads of interesting elements, actually, they kept picking up on, like the Blackened stuff being in the riffs instead of just a thing, and the way the vocalists went high and low, and how they were just like, yeah, okay, we are who we are. And there's some drums too. I heard some drums. They were there. They were mixed quite high in the mix, I think. Where they sampled, maybe.
The way they
maybe
should
not.
be, Kyle.
Yeah, that's the way I'm going to mix my songs from now on.
All drum. Yeah.
Samples,
like
not sure. I think some of the drums were sampled, but now that you've mentioned that they sound natural, I'm going to go and listen again, because
Definitely snare. The snare definitely sounds natural to me.
Well, there's some parts that do, and there's some parts that don't, you see? So I'm like, when they do the snare rolls, it's very even, and either that's a mighty fucking compression and a really, really incredible robotic drummer, or it's a machine. But I don't know.
A lot of the kind of like cymbal accents and stuff as well. I'd be really surprised if those were samples as well.
Cymbals, when you do drum replacement, cymbals tend to be real, because it's really hard to get them like on and everything, and they tend to sound great better when. But it's just like usually the drums themselves are replaced. But I think like a lot of the kick patterns and stuff, it sounded very, very robotic. But I don't know if that's just aligned and compressed to hell, and the drums got amazing technique, because that can sound like samples sometimes. So I'm not really sure. I want to listen to it again, and I'd like to talk to the producer to see if it is or not, because it's a really good drum sound, like you said.
Yeah.
I was almost convinced it was, but then you came in being a drummer and saying it sounds quite natural. I'm like, well, I'm not gonna ignore the word of a drummer.
This will be Dave's new tactic on everything. As a drummer, Kyle, I can tell you right now, don't give him a leeway. Don't listen to Dave. He doesn't know what he's on about. He said sheep earlier on.
But I mean, you could be right, Kel. You could be right, because I mean, like in terms of software and stuff, the level and the quality of the drums that you get from stuff like even like Superior Drummer, which has been going out for years, but you know, they keep upgrading it and bringing out new packs and new samples and stuff, and some of them sound really close to real drums. Yeah, really so sometimes it's very difficult to tell, but there was something about this that just felt kind of natural to me. But
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Some of it did, and some of it really didn't. It was like some fills I heard. It was very on the grid. I don't know if it was just time aligned. Then okay, fine, it was just time aligned. But that's kind of what you expect from this drummer anyway. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know.
Awesome drummer though, absolutely awesome drummer.
Yeah, absolute fucking beast.
There's definitely a real drummer behind there writing those parts and playing them. They can definitely play them too, because there's no way you can write that stuff if you're not an incredible drummer. So you have to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So, absolutely.
I thought it was a pretty good one.
Nice one. Okay, so for ratings on this one, throwing Pestilent Dawn, I would, at the moment, I'm probably sitting with a 4 out of 5, but I've got a feeling this might go up throughout the year. I can definitely tell I'm going to go back to this album quite a lot, so I wouldn't be surprised if it started to kind of go up to kind of 4.5, more listens to this one, but at the moment I'm probably a 4 out of 5. Duncan, what are you thinking?
I'm at 3.5 for this one. This is, like I say, 3 is usually my standard for death metal, unless it does something like wholly unexpected and, you know, really really takes it in a direction that I've not heard the genre go. But this is above that. This is the sort of death metal album I could listen to comfortably more than once, and it's not just because of the length. I will revisit this at some point. Probably when I'm knocking down a wall or some shit.
So what you're saying is 3.5, but possibly a 4 later.
What I'm saying is 3.5, Dave, and I will stick with that. I'll say that if you can remember, which you won't, to ask me in November if this is still a 3.5. Don't pretend to put it in your phone. All that'll happen is you'll come to that and you'll be like, this doesn't even make sense. Duncan, can you remember now about that? Yes, Dave. It meant this. And you're going to be like, that's what I thought. I have to buy you a throne. Like, yes, you can buy me a throne. One that's one from the Pestilent Dawn range. But yeah, no, it's the 3.5. I think there's a lot to enjoy on here. It's not like that's my cross to bear on these recordings. It's just not a genre that I gravitate to listen to a lot, but I can appreciate absolutely everything they're doing here, and it is all be very high quality drum samples or not. So.
Kyle, what about you?
I'm hovering between 3.5 and 4 because 3.5 feels a bit too low because it's actually really well done, but 4 feels a bit too high.
That fence must be really uncomfortable. You're sitting.
Get off it, Kyle. Get off that fence.
One side or the other. Do it.
Right, 4 out of 5.
Boom.
4 out of 5.
There you go.
There we go.
It's not too high. I'm sorry.
This one drops on the 9th of April on Redefining Darkness Records. The album is called Pestilent Dawn, and if you want to check these guys out, it is facebook.com/Throne Metal Band. I'll put a link in the description below to the band's Facebook, any pre-orders, band camps and stuff like that in the description. Let us know what you think if you've heard any of the tracks, or once you've heard the album. Happy to hear your thoughts and opinions on this one. That's the review. Thank you very much for checking it out. Much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.